Hello, welcome to Jim RPG. This is a channel where we're going to do a lot of gameplay videos, and on occasions where I feel like talking about the game, we're going to do some thoughts and impressions and reviews on the games that I played. I've just finished playing Assassin's Creed Origins. This is a game from a couple of years ago that I kind of stopped halfway, and then I've decided to get back into it just to finish it so I could actually talk about it properly. This is a game that is set in ancient Egypt. Assassin's Creed Origins is a third-person, open-world stealth action game where you're just running around the map, doing the quests, killing the bad guys, and you keep doing that until you get to the end of the game. There's not much more to it than that. So I think first things first, let's start talking about the story. The story is basically this Medjay called Bayak, and his son has been killed, and basically the story is him going around trying to find who killed his son. So in general, I would say that the story is fairly uninteresting for the large part. There's not much more to the story other than that. It tries to interweave real historical characters and real places with the fictional story of Bayak and chasing after his son's murderers. What you have is a story that is generally very bland and uninteresting, so much so that by the time you're about halfway through the game, you kind of realize that every scene is basically more or less going to be about the same thing, and you end up just skipping all of the cutscenes and all of the dialogue because it's just going to be the same every single time. And then you could say the same thing about the side quests as well. Most of them are really just you going to fetch somebody for something else or killing somebody for somebody else, doing errands basically. So most of the time the story is just not interesting at all. So let's talk about gameplay. Now the good thing about the gameplay is that the controls feel really good, especially in combat. The enemies will highlight when they come to attack you, so you get the sense that you feel like you can dodge the attacks, and that you don't fail because there's something wrong with the controls. I would say that the controls have come leaps and bounds since the first Assassin's Creed that I played, which was Assassin's Creed 2, and I mean that game came out a long time ago, but that just felt really clunky and slow, and you would stick to objects and then you wouldn't be able to go where you wanted to go. You'd tell the controls that you'd want to jump down and then it just wouldn't, because it didn't understand what it wanted you to do. But now it feels like the controls feel really smooth, and especially in combat too, you generally feel like you can dodge your enemy's attacks with ease, and you can take on multiple enemies at once, and you also got full control of the camera, and most of the time the camera doesn't get in the way, it doesn't hide you behind walls. I mean, of course it does that sometimes, but I would say on the whole it's still pretty good. Like, you could fight in close quarters, and you could still get out of the way of attacks. So overall, I think the game has improved since the last couple of Assassin's Creed I played, which was Assassin's Creed 2, and I also played Black Flag. Well, played some of Black Flag, and this is one of the best controlling third-person action games that I've played for a while. The climbing and the parkour feels really good as well. Obviously, there's not much of a challenge when you're just pressing X to jump around and then stick onto objects and hold onto objects with relative ease. But for what it's going for, the fact that you are sneaking around forts and trying to evade enemies, climbing up different objects, and then jumping down on enemies. It works well for what it's supposed to do, and I don't really mind so much that the platforming is on the easy side. In terms of the enemies, I would say that the enemy fights are generally okay. They're mostly there so that you can have fun with it, rather than actually be a challenge, because they'll have 3 or 4 of the same basic moves, and that's about all they're going to do. There is some stupid AI in the enemies, like you can easily get around powerful enemies by just hiding behind walls or pillars, and they'll continue to hit the wall. But otherwise, yeah, it's good to have glitches and things like that where you can beat more powerful enemies. Now comes the worst part of what I think of the gameplay, is that unfortunately I have to just say, overall, Assassin's Creed Origins is not fun. It's not fun because design of the game design, or the Ubisoft overworld or open world design is fundamentally broken. What I mean by that is that they decided, or some upper management or executive decided, the way they wanted to design the game was to have an exponentially bigger and more open world, where bigger just meant more of everything. So in Assassin's Creed Origins, the overworld map is beyond huge, beyond what this game really ever needed to be. It could have been 1/4 of the size and it would have been huge, but they insisted that they would make it 40 hours long, and that they would go through every area once, maybe not even once. Maybe there's things in the game that you're never going to see or never going to bother. You're just going to run through everything and not even look at it twice. And when you look at this game, everything is beautiful, like the graphics and the art style, everything. And that's what they wanted, to have a 2-minute trailer where you go, this game looks incredible, and I'm going to buy this game based on the fact that it's huge and it looks great. Except what that really means is when you come down to play it, is you don't really care what's going on. You're just going from one place to another. It doesn't matter anymore, like what's there, or if it's part of the story, or who the enemies are. You're just trying to get to the end goal, to unlock the next quest, to get to the next area. So then in the end, all you care about is just, okay, well, I just want to beat the game now. That's what happened halfway through the game, and this is the other part of the problem, is that the game forces you to play a lot of the side quests. Now, technically, you could say that the main quest, there's no difference between the main quest and the side quests. It's just part of the game. You're going to have to do side quests. They shouldn't even be called the side quests. They should be called quests that require you to level up so you can finally do the main quests. They're no longer optional, basically. Non-optional side quests, which is a really weird concept for people who play other games where side quests are things that you choose to do if you want to do it. But in this game, you don't get to choose, because if you try to streamline or go straight line the main quest, you won't be powerful enough to kill the enemies in the quests. You need to level up in order to maintain parity with the enemies in that quest. And even still, like in the menu, you'll get quests that are highlighted in red, where it basically tells you that you're probably not powerful enough to take on this quest. You're probably not going to beat it, so you're just wasting your time. So what you get is a super large world where it forces you to do things that you don't want to do, and it becomes a grind, a terrible grind. But you know, if you're like me, and you say, okay, well, I've already played like 25 hours of this, maybe there's only about 5-10 hours to go, maybe I'll just finish it. That 10 hours could be the most annoying 10 hours that you'll play. You could quit right there and then, but like if you had enough of the game, which I recommend. Like if you want to just play this game for like 15 hours, it's a pretty solid 15 hours where you're going to discover quite a few areas, you're going to see a lot of stuff, and that could be enough. I think that the game is way too big for its own good. The reason why it needed to be big wasn't because of good game design, it was actually bad game design. I mean, if you look at something on the opposite end of the spectrum, something like Yakuza games that I like very much, the map is tiny and you're just you're repeatedly going to the same areas, but actually it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you're actually doing in the game, and in this game all you care about is just rushing to the end, which is a problem. Or another game that I'd say that had a really good sized map would be Sleeping Dogs, where the map was just the right size, where you had a lot of exploration and it didn't get old over the 40 hours of gameplay. Good things that can be said about this game, I would say, would be, aside from the ridiculously oversized world map that has basically nothing in it, are the forts that are in some areas. They're actually well designed. You can see that you can just you can try to figure out a way to sneak around to kill everybody without alarming all the other guards, because once they notice you, they may try to light a bonfire, or there'll be just too many of them and then they'll overwhelm you. But if you can get around and assassinate a lot of the guards one at a time, then you've got a much better chance of clearing out the fort. The level design in many of these forts, many of the larger forts, show really impressive design of space. They're actually fun areas to try different tactics and try to get around in different ways. The few times where I died trying to complete forts, and I would try to figure out different ways to get around so that I don't alert all the guards at once. And I think those are the areas where Assassin's Creed Origins was really strong. Okay, so I think overall I would say the gameplay is kind of broken, simply because the overworld is just far too big for its own good, and most of what they have in this game is just completely unnecessary, and too little time spent on proper game design to be engaging, and too much time was spent on making it as big as possible and making most of the quests too similar. Okay, so let's talk about the graphics of this game, because this is one of the most stunning games that I have seen, even 3 years from when I actually got the game. This game looks amazing, both in terms of art style and also technically. It's just that they've thrown so much production onto this game that it just looks better than every other game out on the market even today. And how big is this world, and how much stuff is not repeated? It's just overwhelming. You could go from one end of the map to the other and not see the same thing twice. There's large cities, there's small cities, there's small towns, there's open areas, open fields, farm areas. It just is actually mind-boggling what they put into this map. So I think that's amazing. I just don't think it helped the actual gameplay. The only downside to the graphics is that sometimes the performance of this game, this is on PC by the way, is that it's there are still some, it's still quite buggy, even 3 years on. There'll be times where the CPU will just hang at 100%, and I don't know what's going on, but textures won't load, and so obviously a bug has come up in the game and killed a lot of killed the performance of the game, and then I basically have to restart the computer to get it back running normal again. And there have actually been times where the game completely quits, and yeah, it just completely hangs up. But overall I would say the graphics look amazing. In terms of sound, I think the sound sounds fine. I'm not a big sound So if I usually play with the sound turned down, but I think yeah, most of it, you'd expect that the production quality would be incredibly high for a Ubisoft game, and yeah, I got nothing to complain about the sound. The sound is great. In terms of fun factor, I would say the first 10-15 hours is really fun, but after that it just gets too similar, and you end up with a huge grind in the middle of the game that forces you to play the same, it forces you to play the side quests to level up your character. Otherwise there's no way forward in the game. And there are even times where you have to find new side quests in different areas, travel all across the map to find them, just so that you can get enough points to level up, which can be pretty tedious. Overall, I would say that I'm pretty disappointed in Assassin's Creed Origins. This is basically half of a good game. The first half of the game is pretty fun, and the second half really drags. If you want to play the first half of the game, I would recommend that. I just think overall the game can get pretty boring by the end of the game. So they're my thoughts on Assassin's Creed Origins. If you like this video, click on the subscribe button to be alerted to new ones, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks!